Good evening. Good evening again. Good evening again. Welcome to the Paseo Courtyard. My name is Katie Poole, and I'd like to start this program. We're gradually gathering here, but I just want to go ahead and get started. And I know everybody has their margarita glasses at the ready, so just so happy to see everybody's face. I am, first of all, a passionate reader. And secondly, I am the board chair of the Pasadena Literary Alliance. Which is more important? I don't know. And I am joined tonight with committee members of the Open Book Committee and also from the Pasadena Festival of Women Authors, all programs of the Pasadena Literary Alliance. So could they all stand up, please? Right? So proud to see everybody together. Just give me 4 minutes. I want to give you an update, and I think everything I'm going to say is vitally important. So we're back together again in person, and Open Book can return to having in-person events. This is the big moment of celebration. But let me tell you, from this podium, that we have improved through the pandemic. And I've heard this from other nonprofits. I think we're stronger. And I just want to tell you how we're stronger. To see our strength, first of all, what do you need to know? Well, first of all, we added volunteers. Now that I think is a strength because we had to do it through Zoom, all right? Secondly, well, first of all, if you're interested in volunteering, please get somebody by the elbow that has red and black on, because we would love to have you. We would like to know what you care about and what you're interested in. And the other thing to know about our strength is that if you look at our website, we have a dozen evergreen interviews online that we created last year. That are so fabulous, and so proud of our ability to pivot and create those interviews. I just reflect on the ability of us to have these international authors speak to us and put those on the website. So that's really important. And we're continuing to produce our interview sessions. And tonight we are so lucky to have Overjoy Creative running the production to create our interview, and we'll edit that and put it on the website in the fall, later in the fall when we get a chance. The other thing I want you to know is that we have now are approaching $500,000 in contributions to the Pasadena area, to literary alliances, literary organizations in the Pasadena area. And so I would like to answer the question, where do our donations go? If you buy a ticket, the thing is that we sell these tickets for an amount of money so that we can generate grants. And I think of us, our little nonprofit, as a little engine for your literary dollar. So we bring in the money, and we're trying to get some real money, right, for people. So then we produce grants. And I want you to know that I have used the Donate Now button on our website, and it works. So if any of you are motivated, then that's how you do it. You give us the money, we make the grants. So that's a good way with the website. But the other thing is that we have a major fundraiser in March every year, and this year our fundraiser, the Pasadena Festival of Women Authors, will be held at the Pasadena Convention Center for 750 attendees. Okay. In fact, in our audience tonight, we are honored to have Nova Jacobs, a previous festival speaker, here. The festival tickets are even on sale now. I mean, I know it's in March, but this is October. And you wouldn't know it, but we have already sold a slew of $1,500 tables for March. Okay, so this is faith. This is hope and faith. And these people are ready to bring their friends. And I just, on your chair, there's a flyer, and it reveals the authors that'll be available, or that you'll be able to see in March. So what you need to do is you need to organize your friends, and for the holidays, you need to buy a table. And it's an experience rather than a consumer item. So you wanna do that. You also wanna endorse the Dodgers when they win. Okay, a couple more items. Our 2021 grantees. So yes, during the pandemic, we gave out $50,000 in grants, okay? So we're represented tonight by, from Pasadena City College, Simona Supakar is here in the back. From the English department at PCC. Also from the Pasadena Senior Center, Pam Kay and Annie Lasky are here, and also Sandy Greenstein right here. Sandy is here, yes. Okay, and I hope from Right Girls, Charlotte Ballo is here. She was intending to come, and there she is. From Penn, Los Angeles, Jen Dees, the manager, is here somewhere, and I think Janice Miller and Joanna Hong might be here. Yes, they're here. Janice and Joanna are 2021 Emerging Voices Fellows from Penn, so they're fabulous. And then we also gave a grant to the Pasadena Library, but they were not able to be here. They're very busy building a new library for you, so that is also going on. So please introduce yourself to these representatives. You can learn from them about how they used our funds. So couple more notes. Our mission is to celebrate authors. It's ambitious. On top of that, we attempt to conduct the OpenBook event in venues that reflect the theme of the book. So, for example, we were at A Noise Within for our Shakespeare book last year, and almost 2 years ago, we chose Youre as this sparkly way to celebrate Attica Locke's Hollywood career. That was 2 years ago, and now we're finally here. So where are we going next? We're going to the Carnegie Observatory in February, and we're going to celebrate Emily Levesque, who was writing about astronomy. Her book is called The Last Stargazers, and there's a flyer for that on your chair also. And now I'm going to make a commercial. We have 2 sponsors just for this event. We have representatives here from Citizens Business Bank. And let's see, is Suzanne here and Mary Beth? I just want you to know that Citizens is our bank, and it could be your bank, right? Also, Rita Whitney's real estate team has been very supportive. They're not here tonight, but they have been very supportive. And frankly, we can't run these events without the sponsorship. It's so important. So here's your job. Sponsorships are still available for February. So think about who you know that would want to reach this group of power thinkers, right? Because that's who you could reach out to and remind them that the sponsorships are possible. Thank you for your attention. It's my honor to hand the program over to Georgia Jeffries, an OpenBook advisor and a USC professor of screenwriting at USC's School of Cinematic Arts, and she will now introduce our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. And what a pleasure to see all of you power thinkers in the audience. It is also my deep pleasure to introduce 2 two authors in the prime of their brilliant careers. These acclaimed storytellers, and I'm talking to you, Attica and Rachel, entertain and enlighten. Riveting characters, high-wire stakes, dialogue that runs hot, cold, sharp as a knife, worlds of shadow, wronged innocence, uncertain outcome, life on the page. As a writing professor, I teach by learning from the best, and Attica Locke and Rachel Hall are two of the best in the business of suspense. Attica comes from a long line of Texans born and raised. Strong family roots inspired her lauded Highway 59 series, most recently the novel Heaven My Home. In addition to her Edgar Award-winning prose, she is a writer-producer of outstanding Emmy-nominated television. Currently, she's adapting for Netflix the memoir written by her sister, Tembi Locke, From Scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home. Rachel is a native Angelino, inspiration for her detective Eloise Norton book series. She's also an Anthony Book Award nominee and a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize. Her latest thriller, Back of That Table, These Toxic Things, earned a Publishers Weekly starred review. Both authors craft gripping bestsellers that mirror the American dream betrayed. Their stories bridge the crossroads of crime and punishment, justice and injustice, and perhaps forgiveness. Redemption is a longer road. They show us that generational trauma, along with our own personal demons, can be healed only when the truth is faced and embraced. Tonight we celebrate their fortitude as well as their talent. The writer's journey is seldom an easy one, and the marketplace not always welcoming. A lot of writers in this audience can speak to that. But they succeed against the odds, they continue to succeed, and they juggle it all. Day jobs, midnight revisions, multiple deadlines for multiple media, mentoring new writers, and last but certainly not least, parenthood. They are both mothers of teenage daughters. And you thought your life was busy, Virgin Andy? Attica and Rachel, thank you for your words, your compassion, your courage, and especially for being here with us tonight. Please come up, the stage is yours.
Hello. That was lovely, Georgia. Is this thing on? Yeah. Is it? Oh my gosh. Well, first, we are thrilled to finally be with you all. It's been like 30 years, it feels like, since we started talking about this. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you for the warm introduction. Thank you for the margaritas. Thank you for, yes, exactly. They're delicious. So Attica, how's it going?
Oh my word, good. I'm good. I don't know how we're in year 2 of this madness. I don't know where we go from here, but I'm just taking it little bites at a time. And my salve in the world is gratitude. Mm-hmm. It is the thing that most instantly calms me down, is that I can start at the most basic level. I'm grateful for these sheets on my bed right now.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm grateful I have a bed to be in right now.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm really grateful that there's water and it's clean.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just brings, at a basic level, it just brings my large anxiety down to being able to hold something that I feel really grateful for. My family's love, roof over my head, as in California, fresh fruits and vegetables. Look, I've traveled the world, you guys.
She has.
California does two things better than anybody else on planet Earth: diversity and produce. Like that, we do that really well. And it's a nice way to eat. Like, my child has such a different. My husband grew up in Missouri. I grew up in Texas. Her concept of what is available for her to eat at any given time, like she eats dragon fruit and raspberries, like she's mangoes and everything, and she just thinks that's normal.
Yeah.
That's not what everybody else's experiences are. I'm sure you didn't come to talk about
What kind of lettuce is in the salad? Oh, it's iceberg.
Oh yeah, that's my kid. That's my kid.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's important because as creators, we reflect the world around us. And yes, California is awesome. We love it. But how is that finding its way into your writing, into your creative process? I mean, there is a school of thought in writing that, oh, I'm not going to talk about the pandemic. I'm not going to talk about any of this. I write cry. Right now, a lot of bad things are happening to women, children who are trapped in homes with a very angry person. How can I not write about their trauma? What's been your take on that?
It's gonna come out. I just think it will look differently for different authors. Some will hit it head on and do a novel about what it is to live during the pandemic. They might do that 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Some people might try to do it next year. In other ways, feeling trapped, feeling afraid, what sickness means, what was for me as somebody who writes criminal stuff that has a political kind of bent, I'm really curious at the ways in which this just kind of peeled back the lie of, like, I'm gonna say something here. Y'all, capitalism is bullshit. Capitalism is some bullshit. I'm just sorry. And all of a sudden, when you saw they were willing to let folks die to make your little tinky toys and Pelotons and all that kind of stuff, the depth to which the leaders of these corporations did not care about the well-being of the people actually doing the labor. I thought we were on the road to some kind of economic revolution from the pandemic. I don't think it's quite showed up, but my eyes have been opened to how low people will go for the almighty
Poor
dollar.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, has it affected your creativity at all?
Well, it dovetailed with doing something different creative. Like, the pandemic dovetailed with me trying a different part of my creative life, which was to be a television showrunner, running a writer's room, and then ultimately going into production. I'm curious how the pandemic will show up in my writing, because I don't know that it'll show up as a pandemic, but it will show up as something, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
And as a consumer of, at least, I've never read a pandemic novel yet. Although, why am I drawing a blank on her name? The woman who wrote Room. She did a novel about the Spanish epidemic, and that shit was hard to read. And not because it isn't beautiful. I was just like, no, that's outside.
Yeah.
Like, that's not. I don't want that. And then there were other TV shows that were about the pandemic as it was happening that I was like, I don't know yet. But in general, I think the pandemic has challenged my creativity in the sense of just existential thought. These crowds my brain all the time. I think about dying every day.
Yeah.
Like, we're all gonna. I mean, we all knew we were gonna go, but damn. Well, it could be kind of quick.
My third grade teacher told me that, oh yeah, you're dying right now, and that kind of that's probably why I write what I write. It's like third grade.
Yes.
It's like, damn.
Yes.
Right now, Miss Karpinski.
Yes.
Well, I know for me it was all the stuff last year. I mentioned this to you earlier, but in March, right before LA shut down, my daughter's one of her best guy friends committed suicide. And she's 17 now, she's a senior, so this was last year when she was whatever that was, 10th grade, 11th grade, I don't know. But her last social event right before the world shut down was a funeral. And then the world shut down and she couldn't see her friends. And then, her aging grandparents, dementia, and diabetes and then the race stuff. And it's like, as a writer, I needed so many words to kind of explain to her what was going on and why she was feeling the way she was feeling. And, you know, being a parent, you always have to be brave. And this was like one of the first times that I was terrified. I was terrified of germs. I was terrified of, you know, of course, the police presence, of her feeling depressed, of the talk of suicide now in her vocabulary.
Yep.
I mean, how was dealing with a teenager at home while also trying to maintain some sort of order and a creative life and all? How did you handle that? Because it does, right?
It was awful. I mean, we were all locked up in a house together. My husband is suddenly practicing law in this room in the house. I'm over here trying to write in this room of the house. She's trying to learn algebra over there. And we're all under the same roof having to stop and make full-on meals at noon.
Yeah.
Like really, like full-on meals.
And then a cat would throw up.
And then there's just all kind of extra stuff. But I mean, overall, I may look back at this time as the most cuckoo thing that any of us experienced in our lifetime. However, I do think there's a way in which, with my particular family, when my teen daughter wasn't saying that I was totally annoying and go away, we kind of spent a lot of time together that I don't think we would have otherwise.
Yeah.
So if there is a kind of gift from it, we had to really get clear about what our value system is. Like, you know, I don't really, it's not worth my health to go shopping right now, or it's not worth my health to go to this party right now. So, yeah, I mean, it's been tough, but we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Creatively, how did you separate yourself, your book life from your TV life? I know I'm a full-time writer at Cedars-Sinai. That's my day job. I write fundraising stuff. And for the first time, I had to kind of sit at the same table to do this. And so my way of separating my day job life from my writing novel life were pins. It's like, I use these set of pins for Cedars and these set of pins for myself. I mean, I needed that kind of separation.
Mine was pants. Meaning, if I put on pants with like no elastic, I mean, I was about business. Like, I was really like, I mean, and not a bra, pants. I'm not saying I was wearing a bra, but I needed pants with a button and a zipper to say, oh, I'm doing work now. Otherwise, I would just be in pajamas. That was part of it, but it was crazy making it. You know, luckily the air outside, when we weren't dealing with fires, was free and available, and you could walk and gather your thoughts outside. And then what happened for me during the pandemic is a lot of it, you know, I'm acting like it was in the past, a lot of it was Zooming at home, and I was writing with a team via Zoom. But then at a certain point in this year, 2021, I went into production. So I went into a very different life, a different creative life that's highly collaborative, that you have to physically go somewhere. And we were doing it all with all this PPE on all day long. And so that had its own kind of challenges.
Yeah. I found, you know, you kind of complain and whine about traffic here, but I found when I had to start working at home, I missed that liminal space between home and office. I did a lot of writing and thinking during, you know, on La Brea, trying to get home, or soccer practice. I mean, it's weird.
It's weird to wax poetic about the days of terrible traffic, but I understand, because otherwise, how do you just go from one room to the next? And you go, your worker in this room, your wife in that room, mother in that room, and you're just all kind of squunched up together.
Yeah. So you said a word, values, moments ago, and last time we had a big discussion for LA Review of Books. We talked about our hometowns, how I love Los Angeles, how Texas is your heart. Well, Texas is kind of cutting up right now. What do you think of that, and how is it affecting, you know, what would Darren Matthews think right now? What is he doing right now?
Well, and you know what, I love the fact that I started that series set back a few years, so I can always make him a little bit behind what's coming, unless I do something which I toyed with, which is jumping ahead. But whatever, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Well, here's my state. I will always say about Texas, I will love it forever because it's what made me.
Yeah.
And it is not possible to hate what made you. Everything awful and hard and difficult about Texas made me who I am, gave me the political outview that I have, gave me the sense of I'm going to stand up and fight. All of that came out of Texas. And I know Texas to be more variegated, more diverse in thought than what gets presented on television. I personally think we're, as a nation, and I will hold media accountable, we're giving way too much attention to cuckoos.
Yeah.
They don't need all this. Just be unvaccinated quietly. Nobody, that's fine. We don't need to hear all your kind of stuff. So I think it's actually a much more narrow segment of the population that is insane when it comes to these issues, and we don't need to give them a lot of attention. Now, Greg Abbott is the devil.
Capital B.
I was on a plane with Greg Abbott once, and every time I'm on a plane, I always say a prayer. I always say a prayer, and I think about the souls on the flight and just asking for, right action and divine guidance for the people who are manning the plane, that they'll know the right thing to do at the right time to keep us all safe. I saw Greg Abbott's ass, and I was like, look, if I have to go down, in this flight to keep Texas safe, I might have to. I literally could not say a prayer for him. I could not bring myself to say a prayer for him because he's not good. And what makes him especially not good is that he is, I don't mean to, there's no part of me that's trying to brush aside his danger, but he's doing a weird, crazy person conservative cosplay.
Yeah.
He has donned that strategically and opportunistically, and it's getting people killed.
Yeah.
So that makes it even sicker. They're the sickos that really believe all that stuff, and they're dangerous. But if you actually really deep down believe it, but you have drifted so far to the right because you see, oh, I can slide in this slot right up under Trump, and you don't really deeply believe all this stuff, you're sick and dangerous.
Yeah.
And the abortion issue is hard to tolerate that one. It's hard to think about that.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel so disregarded.
So where does creativity come then in the Texas story? Do you separate? Can you separate?
No. No, I think because I have chosen to love my home state, warts and all, so that when I get in there and write about it, I don't lop that part off.
Yeah.
I simply think about what it would be for a particular character to live within that, not having those thoughts or being the unfortunate beneficiary of some crazy law.
Yeah.
That's much more interesting to me than trying to pretend that Texas isn't, as you say, acting out.
Yes.
As you say, acting out.
Or as Mom would say, showing its ass.
Showing its ass.
Yes.
Because the thing is, when I go there, and I'm from Houston, so I'm from a major metropolitan city. There, it's I think actually presently the most diverse city in the country. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm there, I'm seeing diversity of thought, diversity of every kind of life and way of being in the world. And so I know these pockets of crazy exist, but I also know that Texas is infinitely more broad and interesting than that.
Yeah.
And the more I know that there are more of us than there are of the other folk who think Trump is still in office, who don't want to get a vaccine, who are trying to take away women's rights, then I have hope.
Yeah.
If the numbers on our side, I have hope. Now, they got all kind of shenanigans and redistricting and all kind of stuff that they're doing to mess stuff up, but we still have a fight kind of in us.
Yeah.
And I definitely, I say all this, but when I sit down to write about Darren, my whole thing is story first. I just want to tell a really good story, and I trust that the other stuff will find its way in simply because Darren is a Black Texas Ranger. It's not possible that he won't have a lens on the world that calls out some hypocrisies that he sees. But bottom line, you start with a scenario and you just make it as interesting as it possibly can be so that people are lean in. They're sucked into kind of the characters, and I try to write people who are very not one note.
Yeah.
And I hope that they're, and even that little, even the poor little kid, I don't know who all's read Heaven My Home, but even this 9-year-old kid is, I hope, kind of fleshed out in terms of him not being a one-note character, even as a child.
No, he's not. Now, moving from how diverse and weird America writ large, how we are, and moving into your sister and her story, and you were in Italy, which is a totally kind of, different place in terms of diversity and all the rest of it. How was that? How is that experience going? One, writing stories, being an American in Italy and that kind of life, and how is it adapting someone else's work, even if it's your sister?
No,
Still,
I know. So here's the big pitch for my sister's memoir. It's beautiful. Truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. My sister studied abroad in the late 90s, and she fell in love with a Sicilian chef whom she bumped into on the street.
cute me.
And they suddenly developed this really incredible friendship that led to love. And they are really, truly like each other's soulmates. And then there was the issue of their parents. That when my parents heard about it, they were like, what? Who? And then when his parents heard about it, they were like, huh?
Okay.
What? They were like, I don't understand. So it turned into this kind of interesting, the Capulets and the Montagues, if the Capulets were from East Texas and the Montagues were Sicilian farmers.
That's awesome.
And so somehow this all got mixed together, and yet a family kind of came out of it. And through all the comedy and tension along the way, my brother-in-law, who is now my late brother-in-law, got very ill. And it is through his illness that actually the two sides of the family really found each other, and that my brother-in-law healed a really torn up relationship with his father. And what over the course of my sister's life, what's in the memoir is that after my brother-in-law passed, after she became a very, very, very young widow, she still went to his hometown in Sicily, and she was trying to spend time there with his mother-in-law. First, she just went to deliver the ashes. But what happened was a second love story between mother-in-law and daughter, who did not have a shared language. One spoke Sicilian. My sister speaks English. They could kind of meet in the middle with Italian. There was nothing about their lives. My sister's mother-in-law lives on an island and had never been to the beach. Just small town Sicily life, and somehow a breath of love came about between these two women, and that my mother-in-law was able to help my sister understand how to walk this path of widowhood. And the way that Sicilians are in life, there was a way of understanding the grace and beauty of things to grab life. You take it and you go squeeze every little bit out of it. And so she wrote this incredible book. It was I consider it a fluke that it got made, because I worked on Little Fires Everywhere, which Hello Sunshine and Reese Witherspoon produced. And I went into the office one day just to read an early script. And they wanted to talk to me about all these other projects, and they had this story about mothers-in-law, and they were telling me, I was like, oh, it's not a good story, but you want to hear a story about a mother-in-law. And I ended up pitching the entire thing. They were like, I'd like to read it this weekend. Secretly, I found out they were like, Atticas' sister wrote a book? Okay. But it's stunning, and it's unequivocally stunning. And so Reese read it, all these people read it, and then suddenly we sold it to Netflix, and we've been adapting this story. And that took me for most of the summer to Florence and Sicily to shoot it. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. It is the polarity between working in television and working in books could not be more different. And I love them both for different reasons, but of course I love one more, and that's books.
Yeah.
Books are quiet. Books are thoughtful. I have such decision fatigue from like picking what is the third prop on the fifth extra, what is he gonna be wearing, and the shoes and this, and you're constantly collaborating with people. It makes the work better, but it's, for me, who's kind of like a gregarious introvert, it tires me out.
Yeah.
It really tires me out. But it was like climbing a mountain. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the writer's room I put together. I'm proud of what we shot. I'm proud of what you guys are going to ultimately see on Netflix, the story of this Black woman on a journey from being kind of like a young kind of co-ed to being a wife with this man of a different culture. They both settle into LA. He's an immigrant here. He's lost.
Yeah.
And is your love big enough for the ways in which you feel displaced as an immigrant in LA? And then them getting married and the families being like, I don't know about all this.
Yeah.
And then he got sick. And it really took a turn in terms of really understanding a love relationship that got them through something like that. And so I'm proud of it. I pray it comes out good. I mean, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because Netflix gave us $1 billion. And so when it's their turn to give notes, you're kind of like, you did give us $1 billion.
So we gotta kind of listen
We
to you.
kind of got to do something. And yet, I don't want to do that.
Because that's stupid.
It's really hard to walk that line.
Yeah.
And I miss books very much.
Yeah.
I miss books very much. And in fact, of all people, Gillian Flynn and I have been doing email exchanges
Ooh.
because I've been like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out? I truly want
This
to
is
write
like the writer's dream, though. I'm like, I'm dreaming of becoming like you when I grow up, you know? And here you are.
When it happens, I will be right there with you to help make it better. I will help smooth you through it. But I promise you, you're going to hit at one point. Why can't I just be in my little book and it's quiet?
with my stapler pencils over the corner. So this is like a book that you are not centered, or
No.
your experience is not centered. And for me, Toxic Things was the very first book. It's back there, but it's the first book that I am not the centered character. The lead character is 24. I haven't been 24 in 29 years or something like that. So I don't know what that means. And so, you know, I think of my 17-year-old daughter and my niece, and they are the characters. They are Mickey. And I'm finding as I'm getting older, I'm looking at young women.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling, you know, the heart palpitations and the fear that, you know, I remember being 24
Yeah.
and what that meant. And do you find yourself moving away from, like, the mom character is there, and I'm the mom character, standing and being protective. Do you find yourself thinking outside of your direct experiences and more like, well, what other stories can I tell that still affect me, but it's not my direct kind of...
I kind of think that here's the thing I'm most interested in seeing from myself. Move the TV projects that are on my plate out of the way. I'm in research on the next Darren book, but even after Darren, I'm really curious what I'm going to write after that. And I think it might look different than anything I've done before, and it might be a craving to, I don't know, just strip away the ways that I've done things before and try things differently. I would say that I'm probably, the thing I'm most afraid of stepping outside of my comfort zone is writing about other locations in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to write a novel about California. I'm terrified.
I've asked you about that, remember? I asked you
I'm
if you were...
terrified. What do I know?
Yeah, yeah, no.
I mean, I'm
get it.
scared of it, but at the same time, I love writing about the South. I love writing about Texas. I love writing about Louisiana. But I do hope that in my future, I surprise myself. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I would like to surprise myself.
Yeah.
Very much so.
We're going to, my next book that I'm actively writing now, it's a Catalina Island story.
Hurricane?
Well, no, it's more,
I'm looking at me.
you know,
guessing.
there are literally 2 Black people who live full-time on Catalina Island, and I find that fascinating and troubling because, well, the reason why is they didn't let Black folks on the boat to get over to Catalina Island to even live there. And so we're going to Catalina this weekend to look, because I'm like you. I love the city. I know it inside and out. And if I'm going to write about another place, then I should probably like go there and not go as a tourist, right?
Yeah.
But back to the centering thing, how I'm thinking about our girls. My daughter is 17, yours is 15. They are seeing both of us kind of balance it all. Do you ever feel, I know when your kids are young, you have that kind of guilt of, I'm not spending every waking moment with them. How are you guys doing with you going off to Italy and the Hollywood thing? And I know she's grounded, but
Well, she actually came for part of Italy. She actually came for about 3 weeks. Her dad took off work, and it was just like an experience of a lifetime. I don't want to talk about. If I talk about the money, I'll start having heart palpitations. Because honestly, by the time it was said and done, it was like I paid for a wedding. But it was like a once in a lifetime thing. So like,
Yes.
my dad came, my mom came, my stepmom came, my niece, and because we were shooting in Florence, which is where my sister met my brother-in-law, married my brother-in-law. It was so surreal to be back in that space when I had been there for the wedding.
Yeah.
So all of that. But I think for Clara, I get snippets of the fact I can tell she respects me.
Yeah.
Snippets. I overhear some people tell me, oh, she's proud of you. But otherwise, it's not a lot of direct stuff. But I do think that she is seeing a mother who is approaching her career from a place of what interests me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where do I want to spend my time on? What do I want to spend it on? I've got finite time. What do I want to do with it? How can I be additive to the world?
Yeah.
I think she definitely sees that. And I hope that whatever career she would find herself in, music or science or whatever it is, that she would follow something that deeply interests her. Because, I think about my professional creative life. I've been doing this 20 plus years. And I'm just kind of at a place where I thought I would have been 5 years in. And the thing is, I'm here because I enjoyed the process.
Yes.
And if you don't love the process, forget it. Because it's all process.
It's all process.
I don't actually think this show that I'm doing, that I'm proud of, that's going to come out, I can't think of a single thing that would actually make me feel, like, there's no award that would make me feel better than just having done it. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't feel, and maybe because it's family, it's based in family, and the one reward I would want to get is one I can't get, which is my brother-in-law to come back and give me a hug. But I can't get that. So, and Emmy, all that stuff, I mean, it's all the work. The work is the work. And it is my hope for a lot of young women and for our daughters in a world in which you can become TikTok famous in about 5 minutes, that you're not chasing you're not taking the map over the territory. Like it's a lived life that's full that I want her to have.
Yeah, no, I always tell my daughter that, you can be someone's wife, you can be the day jobber, you can be the mom, but always have that piece of you that is like all you. I was put here to write. I've been a writer and a reader since the beginning of my entire career, and for me not to do that would be wrong. And so when we talk about companions and future spouses, it's like, find someone who appreciates that in you and who wants that part of you to thrive, because that's your most honest part.
Yeah.
I mean, I get up early to write and then go to work and soccer and all the rest of it, but I love it because at 4:40 in the morning, I save my best writing for me.
Yep.
And
Pay yourself first.
Yeah, and it's like, I love Cedars, and I love the mission of all the great jobs I had, including at Penn Center USA West, where I actually met working writers, but I know, right? Yeah. But I think that's one big lesson I want for her to get is, find that thing that you love and keep it for yourself, and share it, but that is who you are. That's who we raised you to be, and sent you to private school and soccer club and all this stuff for you to be and to celebrate. So
I hope the same thing.
yeah. So what do you think about crime fiction? The last time we talked, there were like 3 of us, and now looking.
I know.
Exactly, people.
Well, it's just a great.
3 of us meaning 3 Black writers.
Yeah. But it's my heart. I mean, I love crime fiction. I mean, it's not only just what I want to write, it's also what I want to read a lot of the times. I'm just in it, and a lot of it is about, what I believe crime fiction is the most sophisticated way of making social and political commentary. because it's always done, it doesn't ever get on top of narrative. It's always just the waves underneath the boat of the narrative. Like, it just supports the narrative. But I also like crime fiction for sheer construction. I like, oh, I got a little bit of information here. And then I got a little bit of information over there. I like the way my brain dances to figure out how these disparate things might connect up and how. So I find that kind of stuff interesting. And then I will be fair, I am a woman in America who's fascinated by, I could get dropped on the way to my car tonight. Like, that's just a thing. Like, I feel that kind of like all the time. Yeah. And so I think there is a truth to women writers and women readers marinating in this kind of space in order to feel agency over it or mastery over it, or I would do this way, or I could have done that way. I think there's value to that, as there's value to the psychological study of who are the people who are doing these things outside of the bounds of our mores and laws, and could I spot them in line at Walgreens?
Yeah.
So it's fair to like study these folks in books,
Right.
and see.
Well, you told me back in 2015 to read The Gift of Fear. Gavin Becker.
Everybody should read that. Yeah.
And I was like, I underlined almost the entire thing. And my husband got tired of me saying, listen to this part, because it's spooky, it's real, it was very helpful. How do you, being a mom, how do you turn that off? I mean, you don't want to freak out your girl all the time. You want her to be aware, but not fearful of everything.
Luckily, I have a partner who tempers my crazy.
Yes.
But I also just say to her, some of this shit is true. Like, some of it's just true. And you need to, like, have a buddy. Like, you need to, like, that's just true.
Bathroom, go.
Yeah, just
your
some
girl.
that is just
Yeah.
basic ass stuff. Like, you need to be aware of the world that you're in. You need to be paying attention. You're not walking around with headphones in. Pay attention.
Walk with purpose. That's what my dad
Walk
always
with
said.
all this kind of stuff. I think you have to do that. I remember I started it with her early. I remember one lesson. It was at the Glendale Galleria. We had been in the Nordstrom at the makeup counter, and strangers, a woman and her child, came up to us and wanted to talk and makeup, and it was fine. It was warm. Then later we were loading our car into a Target in the Target parking lot, and a man came up with some kids and asked me if I was from around there. And my instincts could do the math real fast. Nope,
Yeah.
no. Excuse my language. I said, you're gonna need to get the fuck away from my car right now. You have to back up. I just felt really bad about the whole situation. And later I talked to Claire. I said, your instincts will do that for you. Your instincts met a group of people inside that store, and it didn't set anything off. And I explained to her why this set me off. He was coming on, he has children.
Yeah.
So he knows if he's coming on a woman loading her car, I'm in a vulnerable situation.
Yeah.
So that's one. Two, what are you talking about, and why from around here?
Yeah.
The fuck does that have to do with anything? That just sounded made up.
Yeah.
What is that? And I just got a bad vibe, and I just told him he had to go. And so we've talked about instincts all the time. I've told her everything from a situation like that to if you're going to your friend's house for a sleepover and they want to jump off the diving board in a way that's not safe. If your instinct says that doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yeah.
Follow your instincts, follow your instincts. I say it all the time.
I tell my daughter the story of a Rose Bowl New Year's Eve, like probably not far from here, where teenager, and we met up with some guys. Yeah, well, let me finish the story.
Go
So it was three or four of us, and we met up with some guys, and they wanted to go up to a hotel room. Well, I'm like, no, I don't know them. And so I spent the night in the back of my cousin's Pacer, her AMC Pacer. I slept in the car. It's like, there's nothing good going on up there. And so I tell my daughter, it's like, if you need to sleep in the back of a Gremlin, do it, or we'll come and get you. But if you're not feeling it, don't go up there. So yeah, I get it. So are we
Well, are
at
you
a point?
going to take some questions?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay. So, audience, if you could think for a second about any questions that you want to ask. And I'm going to give the first question because I want to know about the future of Darren Matthews. And I want to know when you would set him in time, after Trump, sort of in Texas, in modern acting out Texas? Like, when will he embrace Texas, its politics?
What do you mean by embrace? You mean when we have to face?
Engage,
Okay.
yeah, engage.
Well, I don't know, because I would have to do a big leap forward, and I'm definitely thinking about that right now. I will tell you this, I think probably the next book is the last one. I think it's probably going to be a trilogy, and so I kind of have a lot of threads to bring home. So there's that. And I don't want to give away too much, but know that I'm not married to meeting him exactly where we left him off. That I have definitely have had a thought to jump ahead. I don't know that it jumps to 2020, but I've had a thought to jump ahead. Yeah.
I think you're just gonna stand up and. That's remote.
Now I have to say something cogent. I am not from Texas. I'm native Californian, and I understand why you would like the state. I don't understand why you like the state. So I'm curious, did you have contact with Texas Rangers? Why would you pick Texas Rangers as the main character's line of work? We have heard so many varied stories about Texas Rangers.
Oh, yeah, they have a stinky, interesting past. They do. Basically, I came up with the idea to do a series of stories along Highway 59. That was the impetus for this series. And I was told that that's great. You know, it would be a different crime, a different little town along this major north-south artery. But then it was suggested to me that, you know, part of the trope of the genre is to follow somebody, to be with a character that you're going to hang out with. And so I started thinking, okay, well, who is it going to be? Is it going to be a private eye? Is it going to be like a lawyer? Who? Because the Highway 59 in East Texas goes from Laredo to Texarkana. So who could range in there? And I went, Texas Ranger. The issue was I didn't know what they did. I kind of knew, but I didn't really know. And then also, I had always said I would never write a cop. I just thought that's not for me. I don't see the world through the lens of the establishment. Not going to do it.
I mean, your name.
Yeah, Attica. I was like, that's not going to happen. However, I read a book called Ghetto Side. Gigliovi, and in there is a black cop who talks about the language in the book predates Black Lives Matter. But what he's saying is he's a black cop who lives in and polices in South LA. And that book posits that one of the things that we're up against, yes, there's the over-policing of black life, that the bigger American story is the under-policing and under-prosecuting of crimes against black life. And that he, as a black cop in South LA, wanted to make sure that when there were transgressions against people of color, that somebody got caught and that somebody actually got prosecuted. And it gave me a different lens of thinking about law and black cops. And then also when I understood that I could write him as somebody who was conflicted, you know, he's raised by these two twin uncles who have different ideas on, you know, on law and what law means for black folks. I knew if he lived in that pole, the pole between those poles, I could write him. I could write his ambivalence was my ambivalence. His ambivalence about Texas is my ambivalence about Texas. And the only thing I can say is that he certainly in Heaven, My Home, alludes pretty clearly to the fact that he's aware of their racist history, and that he was making kind of bargain of like, if I, you know, as it said in Bluebird, he says that the lynching in Jasper was his 9/11, and that he wanted to be boots on the ground, and that is the greatest seat of policing power in the state. But I think that's part of his conflict too. I think he's aware in Heaven, My Home that he has way too much power. Even when he's using it for good, should anybody be able to just make up evidence and plant stuff? I don't know. So I like the contradictions. I like writing into the mess of it all. And also because I truly am working out the fact that my whole soul will light up when I hear the word Texas. When I touch ground, I just light up when I go to my ancestors' land. But I can see that from somebody from the outside, the idea of going to Texas right now feels like, ugh. But I just, because I know that it belongs to a greater number of people and souls than are represented by the great Abbotts of the world. Not a perfect place, but it is a place that made my family.
Over here, Jen. Where? Oh, yeah, right here? Okay. Coming around. Coming around. And then there's one in the back. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. Great to hear you both speak. I'd love to hear about both of your, I know, transplant from here. I'd love to hear about your experience about literary Los Angeles and what it's meant to you, what you would love to see more of, less of, in Los Angeles for both of you.
Well, I love this city in all its mess, like you love Texas. And, you know, people who aren't from here think this city is full of vacuous, you know, Botox airheads. And I know that is not true. And, I mean, none of you here are Botox idiots. You're here on a Tuesday, whatever, and listening to us talk about books. Yeah, right, from what I can see. But I think we have a great literary history here, and it's not this kind of cut and dried, what MFA program did you go to? We're a mix of, screenplay and music and beat and urban, and we're a big mess of everything, and I love that. I think that's our superpower here in Los Angeles, and yeah, yay. I'm looking forward to reading more stories. We're open to different voices, different neighborhoods now. It's not just the one story on the west side of that, you know, that couple over there, but south of the 10. My stories are all south of the 10 and east of La Brea and all the rest of it. So I'm looking forward to even more of that and us embracing so many different voices. So yeah, I love this place even more now.
Yes, I would say that I've said before, Los Angeles is a city in love with no canon. It just doesn't
That's
subscribe to all the kind of rules that I think you find on the East Coast, so that there is a freedom of thought, freedom of expression. I think that the literal space of Southern California translates into permissive space. How can I, in that space, try different things? And you don't get a ton of judgment. You don't get a ton of like, that's not art, or
Right.
you didn't go to this program and so I don't know. I feel welcomed. I feel welcoming when new people come and talk about stuff. I never thought of that. That's great.
Question here?
Yeah. It seems like one of the great advantages of being born in Texas or Louisiana is that we have really interesting idioms. So the one that I really liked, and I wanted to ask what your favorite idiom might be. Mine was, my parents always say, "What do you know good? What do you know good?" And it just seemed to engender conversation. You had to say something. So is there any idiom that you love from Texas or Louisiana?
I do, and it is more native to my actual family. It's my grandmother, whose name is Precious. It's not her real name, but she had 8 granddaughters, and she used to say, "Oh, my precious," and when they could speak, mirrored it back, so she became Precious. So her name is Precious. Her thing that she says all the time is, "Things ain't so bad they couldn't be worse." And I think about that constantly, because just when you're like, "Oh man, this is bad," you're like, "Oh, that could be worse. So let me just make peace with this. Things ain't so bad they couldn't get worse."
My mother's actually said something like, she's from she's from Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah.
So that's why the whole show your ass thing, that's hers. So yeah.
Oh, we have another question. Yep, wherever it came from. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, this is good. So, oh wait, here. Okay. Oh, all right.
So I think the writer's journey is often a journey of faith, or maybe every single day, every morning you wake up. So what I'd like to hear about is maybe something about one of your Joe moments. So the biggest obstacle maybe you faced at some point in your career, and how were you able to move through it?
Well, for me, it happened when after my first book was published on the first anniversary of 9/11. So I thought that was going to be the biggest obstacle. I did not know that was not going to be the case when I got pregnant with my daughter. I was 32 years old, and one of my first appointments with the OBGYN, she discovered a lump in my breast. And 4 months down the line, after going back and forth to UCLA, it was a breast cancer, and my pregnancy was feeding that lump. And I was, I'm 32 years old. I'm trying to get a second book deal. I'm getting rejected because at that point, publishers were like, well, your voice isn't black enough. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Because I'm black, always been. So it was weird because surviving that, being a pregnant mom, fighting cancer, writing became even more of a distraction for me because I needed that to just make it through the day. And so cancer also helped kind of gave me permission to do something I never thought I would do, and that would be to write crime fiction, to start a series. Because, my biggest fear was, I'm not a cop, my brother's a lawyer, but I'm not. I don't know anything about this world of police procedural. But, I had already faced the scariest thing anyone could face, and that's death, or the death of my child. So it's like, I'm gonna try this and write this story about this police detective who, is like Walter Mosley meets Terry McMillan, because what's the worst that can happen? And so, getting diagnosed and dealing with that freed me, and the obstacle actually became kind of more inspiration and a galvanizer and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it's weird how books save you in so many ways, and I'm grateful that one, I had the resources to do that, to write and to go to different conferences to learn how to read, and a family who supported me for that. So that was my biggest obstacle.
We're glad you're here.
I am
We're
too.
glad you're here. Mine is not that dramatic. I fight myself every day because I'm such a neurotic weirdo. And every time I write a book, I'm convinced I have no idea how to do it again. It's a cycle of thinking, and it's extraordinarily painful. And even when people point out, but you said that last time, I'm like, no, this time is different.
For real.
This time is different. And I'm presently right now excruciatingly uncomfortable with how long it's been since I've just been writing a book. Because I've been doing TV for 3 years straight now. And I worry that my muscle memory is atrophying. The parts of my brain that know how to write prose, what if they're gone when I sit down? It gives me kind of like panic.
Yeah.
But I've also literally had that panic with every single book. And so the only way to get through it is through it. I have to learn how to observe. Jane Smiley in her book 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel. She talks about the fact that her feelings about certain books, like how you feel about a book, does not have anything to do with the quality of the book. How when she thinks about 1,000 Acres that won her the Pulitzer, she says, yeah, it's a great book. Okay. But there's another book, I think it was called Horse Heaven, that she loved. And when she turned it into the editor was like, oh, I got the material, not a book. I didn't get the manuscript, I got the material. And she was like, they didn't like it at all, but I loved it. And neither of them have anything to do with how it's going to be received. So I've had to learn that a feeling is a feeling, not a fact. That I can feel funny, I can feel sure I'm going to fall on my face. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I'm always able to pull through, but it does not feel good. It just doesn't feel good. I drive my husband crazy. I pay lots of money in therapy to talk it all out, but those are, it's not an obstacle that reached like a grand apex. It's kind of like an everyday obstacle. Every day I worry about losing my voice. just, or not being able to hear my voice, specifically now that I'm in this world of trying to please
That's what's
big
going to be my
corporations.
question.
Just-
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, it seems like it's safer in some ways to be in this collaborative space because it's not just you. It's like, well, the notes say I have to make this sound bad, but that's
No,
the
but
producers or
But
whatever.
you know what I learned about myself, which so I did the Sundance Labs, and we probably have to stop talking to sign books. I did the Sundance Labs, the feature filmmaker labs, and the whole point of that is to explore, and it's not about making perfection. You're just trying things, all this kind of stuff. I remember I was editing a scene that I had shot on this mountain in Provo. They have the gorgeous resort. And you have all of these very famous mentors walking around, Sally Field, Denzel Washington. And as I'm editing, I had only a couple of hours to do editing. And the guy who directed Heathers and Alfonso Cuarón walked into my editing room, and they were like, hey, what's going on? We want to take a look. And I was like, great, here's what we're doing. And they're like, why'd you go to the two shot here? What's funny is, like, I feel like if it opened with this shot from this way and you came back around and did this, I think that's a better. And then they started arguing with each other. No, you shouldn't do that because if you did. Oh. I was 25. These two Oscar adjacent people walked out, and I went, oh, I guess I have to do what they said. I tried to make it. It was the worst, most awful Frankenstein piece of crap I've ever done. I was so ashamed of what I'd made that on this big, this big property, we always ate dinner together, after the screenings. I hid after my screening. I went and hid in the house where I was staying. I was so ashamed. And what I learned that night is, if I fail with some shit I recognize as my own, I can live with that. But if I fail at something that I was just trying to please everybody else, I can't live with that. So I'm trying to figure that out in Hollywood. I'm trying to figure that out. We'll see. Thank you. Oh, here's one.
Thank you for being here. I have warmed my heart for a month, so I can't wait till we get back together. Thanks to both of you for opening your lives to us. Thank you. And back in the back, these toxic things, and Heaven My Home, and Bluebird is, the both of them, all the books are there. Please buy them. And now, Attica and Rachel are going to move to that table with the white cloth so that a few people, I think, can get their books signed, if that'd be okay with you. So.